Hello everybody on YouTube, this is Nantox and I'm here to bring you a quick look plus my impressions of The Surge, the upcoming science fiction action role-playing game being developed by Deck 13 and published by Focus Home Interactive. After creating Lords of the Fallen, they have set out to make a Souls-like, if you want to call it that, but set in a gritty, like sci-fi universe. It feels very District 9 or Elysium style with the exosuits and the more down-to-earth sci-fi. You're not really shooting crazy laser beams out of your chest or anything, at least so far. The game plays really well, and I'm going to start off by actually talking about what makes it stand out from a Dark Souls or Neo or the other games in the genre that it's clearly inspired by. So I think the biggest and most obvious change is right here in the status screen, in the gear system, and how it works. So in this game, there is no equip weight. There is no fat roll. You have an energy, stamina, and health. Now the thing is, heavier gear, such as these big rhino arms, which are considered a Goliath class, which is, you know, the equivalent to a big heavy armored knight in a Dark Souls game, you'll notice that for the stats, it consumes, you know, a lot of power, but the attack speed goes down. So if you have heavy arms, your attack speed itself will be slowed. If you have heavy legs, you'll consume more stamina as you dodge and run, but your character remains nimble. Because you wear this heavy gear, as you can see here, my character can still hop around very quickly. It's just my stamina runs out, and then all of a sudden I have to wait for it to come back. So it's a bit different. There's no fat roll, so to speak. Also here, another key thing when it comes to the character upgrade system is the power core. So you see down the bottom of the screen, you have core power. Now if I take this arm, you see how it says core power consumption. So the way the game works, the loop of the game, if you will, you go out and defeat enemies, you gather tech scrap, which is what you see at the bottom of the screen, you go to the med bay, and you allocate tech scrap into your core power. When you fill that bar up, you get another level of core power, one power core per level, and that allows you to equip more and more, like more items and more complex items. So these arms consume 3. If I remove them, I'm down to 15, which then lets me go into my implants. Now implants are passive abilities that have various dramatic effects. So right here, I have vital injections. Now vital injections is pretty similar to the Estus Flask or the elixirs in Neo. That is what allows you to heal and gather health while you're out there in the field. I have 3 charges. This med bay is pretty much a bonfire. Every time you come here, you refill your implants, your vital injections, and you reset all the enemies in the map. Now we have other things here, such as display enemy health gauges. We also have things like maximum health and energy, which are interesting because, as you see right there, it scales with your core power. The game has a lot of things involving scaling. So if I was to then look at my rig, which I don't have many right now, but that's where you're going to change your look and your overall character style. If I go to my specs, you'll see there's 5 weapon types in the game with various proficiencies. Now those proficiencies, there's no skill points like a Dark Souls game. You don't level, take your souls, and then put them into various attributes. That so far does not exist at all, because everything scales with various proficiencies. Gear scales with your core power along with implants. And if I take a look at this weapon, you'll see right there, you see the impact, the attack speed, but proficiency scaling. The higher the scaling, the more damage you get when you level up that scaling by using that weapon. So as you see, my single rig is level 3, so it scales accordingly. There's gear sets, which I do not have at the moment. So it's overall a pretty unique system, and they keep some of the stuff from Lords of the Fallen, where the longer you stay out, the more enemies you defeat, you'll start getting a multiplier to your tech scrap. Now, A different twist is if you die, there is a timer on your tech scrap, on your souls, so to speak. So you can't just take your sweet time getting back to your tech scrap. You have to make sure you get there pretty quickly. Now, defeating enemies increases this timer, so it's not like you can just... You're not hopeless, but you do have to be steadfast to get your souls back. You can't just dilly-dally and eventually get there. You have to make it a priority to get back to them if you want to get them. Of course, you can sacrifice them, go a different path. As for the actual gameplay itself, it plays really well. It's extremely responsive. Your character is very nimble. They're very, very quick with the controls. Everything feels solid. There's a nice heavy weight to all the attacks. It definitely plays better than Lords of the Fallen. Enemies can be staggered. You can get them stunned now. I felt like Lords of the Fallen, it felt like you're smashing your weapon into brick walls that would attack you regardless of what you were doing to them. Here, there are some enemies like that, but it makes sense because of the targeting system with the limbs, which is another area in which this game is very different from a Dark Souls or Neo. So when you lock onto an enemy, normally you flick the right stick to toggle between multiple targets in one of these types of games. In this game, you lock onto an enemy and the right stick flicks between the different limbs. Now, some limbs are yellow, indicating that they're armored, and some are blue, indicating that you can destroy them and take those parts. Damage them easier. So if you say target someone's blue leg because it's unarmored, you're more likely to stagger them. Now, the gameplay balance comes in because there is a limb execution system in this game. If you attack enemies and you build up enough energy, you can hold square to do a fancy finishing move and try to remove that limb. In some ways, it feels like a modern-day Cyborg Justice, which was a Sega Genesis game back in the 90s, where you could target different limbs, take them for your own, and it provides a really fun context, because I don't like loot for loot's sake. Loot always makes more sense when it's something that fits in the context of the world and the gameplay systems that are bringing it to life. So, targeting somebody's armored arm and then executing them to remove that limb is a much more satisfying way to get the parts you need. In a way, it feels like you're trying to cherry pick what you want, window shopping with murder, if you will, to build your exosuit and have fun your way. Now, not every time gets you the guaranteed limb. Sometimes you may get the schematics. Sometimes you may just get wrecked salvage parts, and those are parts that you can consume at the med bay to gather a bunch of tech scrap, kind of like the soul stones in a Neo or the similar item that they have in Dark Souls. Overall, it's very fun. It plays well. It's very difficult. It's much more difficult than the beginning of Neo. I actually died to the first boss here about 9 times on stream yesterday. So it's not as easy as these games have been. And part of that is due to the game just being difficult. Part of it is due to the enemies. You have to be very careful. If I had to make a complaint about the game, some enemies have a really, really long and strong lunge attack where they'll be feet planted, they're about to swing, and then when they swing, they jump forward about 20 feet, so it can catch you off guard when you're first playing the game. It's just something that you have to be aware of. Once you understand that that's how some of the enemies attack, then you can plan accordingly. It's just, it seems a little off, and they seem like they can go really far, but to be fair, your character can do the same thing, so I guess it all evens out in the end. In terms of the aesthetics and the way the world looks, the game actually has a really interesting opening, which I'm not going to spoil here, and there does seem to be a through line storyline wise of what's going on, who you are, and what you're doing here, more than I thought there'd be. I thought it would just be flat sci-fi, here you go, your character doesn't even speak, but your character does have a voice, he does talk. Voice acting's a little odd, but so far nothing has stopped me from enjoying the game. It's nothing. My little nitpicks with it have not brought me down. In terms of actual combat feel, the one thing I will also say about this game is that you have to really commit to one of your 3 actions. So you can swing, you can block, and you can dodge. And so far, I have not seen any attacks, at least in this basic exosuit. Now, I may get different exosuits later on, that change how that works. But as of right now, when you commit to an attack, you're going to follow through with the entire attack. You cannot attack then block or attack and dodge to cancel out of the animation, so you have to be very careful with what you do. And blocking right now, so far, for me anyways, is what I consider the weakest aspect of the game, because the blocking feels very inconsistent with what's going to happen when I'm holding block and an enemy attacks me. I've stood there, held block, and had an enemy lunge at me and make full solid contact and hit me for the full damage. Other times, I'll stand there, hold block, and when the enemy attacks me, I block the entire thing and I don't get hurt at all. But it's the exact same enemy and the exact same type of attack. So there's no... I haven't figured out yet what's causing the attack to hit me. I don't know if your block is really based on a block chance. I haven't seen that stat yet. So it feels very inconsistent. It seems like dodging is going to be the way to go to avoid damage and then inflict damage very quickly onto the enemies. So those are my brief impressions of the game. I know it's like brief, but it's 11 minutes long. I'm sorry I'm long-winded, but I like to explain things thoroughly. It looks great on the PS4 Pro. There is the quality mode for resolution and performance mode, similar to Neo. Now, I have not tried the resolution mode because I play on the 1080p monitor, but on the PS4 Pro in performance mode, this game is beautiful, and it's extremely smooth and fluid with the frame rate. I have not had one frame rate drop. It seems like it's 60 locked. That's a thing I'm very careful with. I haven't noticed any screen tearing or anything like that. It's actually really incredible how smoothly the game runs, which a game like this, you want that tight feeling control. It's much better than Lords of the Fallen. I have to say they've made a lot of improvements. So far, I really like what I play of the game, and I want to keep playing, whereas Lords of the Fallen, I kind of felt like I had to trudge through. I'm actually really enjoying this, and it's become somewhat of a pleasant surprise. So hopefully you guys like the impressions. I'm sorry they went on for so long, but I like to be detailed in what I talk about. My name is Namtox. If you like the channel, please support by liking and subscribing. If there's any questions that I did not answer in this video, post them down in the comments below. I'll be playing more of the game. I'll be streaming more of the game on my various channels. I'll let you guys know when that's happening, and I will answer any and all questions you have. Thanks for watching this non-spoilery impressions video. My name is Namtox. Have a good one, everybody.